But first, for more on the effort in Congress to extend the Trump administration's D.C. police takeover, let's bring in New York Congresswoman and House Intelligence Committee member Claudia Tenney. Congresswoman, thank you for joining us. What's your reaction to really what's transpired this week with the federal takeover and cooperation with the local police and leaders?
Look, I think it's tremendous that President Trump has declared an emergency in DC. Anyone who lives there, as I do, knows how dangerous it is. It is, between carjackings, my own staffers, one who's got grazed by a bullet, another one got held up at gunpoint. We've had staffers that were killed. We've had a couple killed outside of, in downtown DC. This should be our nation's capital, and it should be beautiful, and it should be safe. And Trump is imposing common sense laws that the Democrats should have put in place that control DC. And I think that they're cooperating because it is an emergency and they know that they have a problem and residents are concerned about it. And I think that all these people that come from all over the world to visit us should be safe when they visit our nation's capital, the beacon of freedom. And I think it's really important to see that Trump is actually taking charge on this. And the sanctuary city policies, if you want to just know why they don't work, just come to New York City, go to upstate New York. They're even our cities that never had the crime level they do now, between Rochester, Syracuse, you name it, upstate. We have the same problems because of the terrible laws in New York State, which are similar to the terrible laws in the District of Columbia.
Do you think, Congresswoman, that if this federal local operation in D.C. bears out significant crime reduction, that it will then become a blueprint of sorts for other cities like New York City and across the country?
Well, it should be, but of course, it's getting maligned by a lot of left-wing Democrats and anti-police type of Democrats. But I'll tell you what, safety and security is the number one thing I hear about from people all across my district and everywhere I travel. People are concerned about that, and that is the number one obligation of government, is to provide safety and security. So I think that people are looking for some kind of leadership, and President Trump has filled that void. He is leading on the number one issue that most Americans, families, and people are concerned about. Look, the last time I went into DC, I got off my Uber and went to go into my door, and they ran out and said, "Get in. Somebody just got mugged right in front of our building." I mean, this is in the district of, I mean, why is we allowing this to happen? I mean, this is dangerous. So I hope it becomes a blueprint. But, you look what's happening in New York City. You have an anti-Semitic, communist, Marxist derivative, anti-police, defund the police, leading candidate for the Democratic Party, who, by the way, also serves in the New York State legislature. And if he wins as mayor of the city of New York, that is going to greatly influence the legislature and give the Democratic Socialists of America, who are, by the way, I think Marxists, it gives them even more, power, more confidence in that they're going to impose these dangerous policies on the rest of the state, which is going to be very dangerous for us.
Yeah, and Zohran Mamdani just doing this sort of 5-borough tour and really trying to make it on a bit of an anti-Trump campaign. He's choosing to go after Trump at every turn. I believe I have a full screen from him saying, he's talking about Trump here. He said, "They heard a candidate, now a president, who ran on a message of cheaper groceries, on making for easier cost of living, on delivering that which seemed out of reach, and yet to know him, to not only be insincere, ridiculous, and horrific, but to prey upon the very sense of despair in the lives of New Yorkers." So how does this end?
Look, there's one person who actually did bring down inflation, did lower costs, did put more money in the wallets of Americans, and that's Donald Trump. When he passed the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act in 2017, when he took our money and gave it back to us from the government. All money that goes to the government is our money. It's all taxpayer money when they talk about government spending. And Trump tried to do that. He tried to have common sense reforms, making sure we protect the neediest people. He just did, a very big, long press conference on protecting Social Security. I also have a resolution in the House of Representatives to protect Social Security. That's something I'm eligible for actually right now, and my district really needs Social Security to be strengthened, and President Trump knows it has an end date. So Mamdani just wants a communist takeover and a handout. Using other people's money never works. from every great conservative, from Margaret Thatcher to Ronald Reagan and now even Donald Trump. We know that doesn't work. Mondami's principles are tried and true losers for everyone. And the greatest incubator for what not to do is New York State, and now being driven by the worst policies in the entire nation by this Mondami, who could eventually, hopefully not, but may become the mayor of the largest city in our country and a very important city when it comes to the economy in not just New York State, but our entire nation and the world.
Well, and to your point about, everybody seems to have here in D.C. a personal experience about, muggings and feeling concerned about their safety, which is a complete reversal from what the stats show you. The stats say the crime's down, but nobody's actually feeling that. If this operation in D.C. does change things and reduce crime significantly, people feel safer. It's going to be a message sent to Mamdani in his election. Congresswoman Claudia Tenney, thank you for taking time today.
Thanks so much.
All right.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.